Thank you. In 2008, our next alumni honoree established her own production company, Sine Timore Films. The Latin phrase sine timore means without fear, a fitting description of the way Stana Katic has tackled her career and her life's passions. As an artist, Stana is interested in telling interesting and impactful stories. Her own begins with growing up in Winona, Ontario, and then continuing on to Aurora, Illinois, eventually training at the theater school and then moving to Los Angeles. Since arriving in LA, she's been very busy portraying characters in amazing stories both in film and on television. Some of her feature film credits include roles opposite major stars like Daniel Craig in Quantum of Solace, Morgan Freeman and Greg Kinnear in Feast of Love, Samuel L. Jackson and Eva Mendes in The Spirit, and Richard Gere in The Double. This past year, Stana completed production on the feature film CBGB, which presents an inside look at New York City's famed punk rock nightclub. Stana portrays Genya Ravant, a music producer and former lead singer of the 1960s rock band Goldie and the Gingerbreads, and stars opposite Alan Rickman, Rupert Grint, and Joel David Moore. But perhaps the story she's most known for is the one that she tells alongside Nathan Fillion on ABC's hit show Castle. In an interview, Stana has shared, "I'm surprised by how many people are aware of our show when I get out of my cave of creativity. But fans certainly aren't surprised at her continued success and her role as NYPD detective Kate Beckett." Parts of Stana's own story that everyone might be surprised to know is that she plays multiple sports and often performs her own stunts. She sings, she speaks 5 languages, and holds dual citizenship in the United States and Canada. Stana also started a campaign in 2010 called the Alternative Travel Project, in an effort to improve the environment, create a greater sense of self. You want to say it?
Go ahead.
And to make Los Angeles its better self.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
What?
You did great, by the way.
Yeah.
And you pronounced my name beautifully. Thank you so much.
Yes, I did. There's more if you want to hear it.
No, I can't handle it anymore. It's not your fault. You're wonderful. I just can't talk about me anymore.
I am going to say this one last
Yes,
thing.
do it.
Is that all right?
Go ahead. Yes.
So tonight,
Yes.
we honor her courage as we present the 2013 Alumni Excellence in the Arts Award to Stana Katic.
Yes, thank you. That's very sweet. Can you hold it for me now?
I will hold it for you.
Thank you so much. My fellow artists and students of life, thank you for letting me be here today. I was actually one of the fortunate recipients of a scholarship that Nights Like Tonight support during my studies at the theater school. For me, it was the Chicago Drama League scholarship that set up a platform on which I could continue my studies in the arts. And trust me, I was depending on this scholarship to be able to continue studies. So I was so grateful when that actually came through. And it was huge, my studies here. When I began at the theater school, I was coming from a traditional academic background. I had finished what essentially amounted to a pre-law studies with a focus on international economics and affairs. So it was a life trajectory aimed at foreign service or aimed into some international consumeristic monster corporation. Not that I don't work for one right now. So changing to the arts was a major paradigm shift. And in some ways, I don't know if I was aware of or understood all of the tools that I was being offered at the time. And that's kind of how I feel about education, especially education, the education that I got at the theater school. Mind you, I was like, I'd get stuff, but I wasn't always like, hey man, just teach me, I'm totally open, So I was a little thick. They had to really dig in deep. the point is that I felt kind of like the school was a situation in which they said, hey, here's a grab bag of tools that we have. We are a bunch of experts. We've been doing this thing for a long time, and you're going to find yourself in a series of different situations where any of these tools might work. So just get familiar with them, and maybe something will be useful down the line. And when I say thick, what I'm trying to say is that initially it was difficult for me to understand an education that wasn't result-oriented or centered on competition. I mean, you go to business school, you go to pre-law, that's the deal. So much of what I learned at school really only made sense afterwards, which I kind of wish wasn't the case. I can't tell you how many times in my paid career I have wished for a moment to take a quick movement class with Betsy, or a voice class with Claudia, yoga with Gabriel, scene study with Jim, Rick, Ann. I mean, the list goes on. And sometimes I think to myself when I'm in the middle of like a scene, I say, oh, that's what they were talking about. Dang it. Why didn't I get it at 8:30 in the morning after an all-nighter studying monologues or performing in a black box? Speaking of black box, when I was here, we weren't allowed to do any theater on the side. Is that still the case? Yes. I'm going to share a story. And there's only one other person who's possibly in the room that might know about this, but much like Voldemort, they will remain unnamed. Now, for all of the people that are still students out there, this is my disclaimer. I am not encouraging this behavior. I swear to God I'll be quicker than I have been. But point is I got this gig at a local black box, totally against school policy, totally resulting in possible expulsion. And I figured, you know what? It's not going to hurt anyone. I'm a first year. I'm not in the mix for casting yet. Who's going to know? So anyway, it's opening night, and of course I find out that while I'm in the dressing room prepping to go out there, one of my professors is in the audience. So in addition to having normal opening night jitters, I'm overcome with this nauseating sense of academic and career doom. And the performance went off without a hitch, but I wasn't aware of it at all. And on the rare occasion that I actually dared to look out into the audience, I didn't see the professor who shall not be named. So after the show was done, I thought to myself, maybe she didn't show. Maybe I escaped torture and punishment. Maybe the planets conspired to give him or her some sort of spontaneous, non-fatal allergic reaction to shellfish, thereby saving my scofflaw self from certain disaster. Yes! Anyway, basically I had that night to lull myself to sleep with that thought before the hour of enlightenment came, and before I would be walking through the school halls straight into the professor who shall not be named's classroom. First class of the next day. Awesome. Thank you, universe. So the problem was, aside from the obvious expulsion, this class was actually a particular favorite of mine. I was a vocal participant in the inspiring conversations, and I genuinely admired my teacher, which made the possibility of having disappointed him or her that much more devastating. That day, for the first time ever in class, I found the least keener position and wedged myself between two very large classmates. And I have one classmate here, Ernie. I'm not saying you were one of the large classmates. I'm just saying. I'm just saying I sat between two people so I could be unseen and unheard as I suffered through the class. And it didn't work. The professor spotted me. He asked he or she, asked to chat after class in his or her office. Anyway, as we would have it, we were talking about the era of the Greeks, and in the thick of talking about Antigone. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with Antigone, it's basically an ancient play about a young woman who disobeys the king and gets killed for disobeying the king. Oh, God. So, an hour and a half of Antigone, and let me tell you, the professor who shall not be named laid it on thick, while managing to find the one sliver of a standing position in which all of his or her pointed commentary would laser through my large classmates and land directly in my lap. At least that's the way it felt on my end. After class, in the discomfort of my professor's office, the professor shut the door, began a very serious private discussion. I saw you last night. Silence. I realized at that point that my belly button was very interesting. I tried to focus on my belly button. I thought a lot about my belly button. The professor said, "You do know it's not allowed." "Yes," I mumbled. Silence. "Why did you do it?" "Because I love it." That was the first time all day that I actually looked into my professor's face, and I saw a pair of twinkling, impish eyes staring back at me, and there was something in my professor's grin that was thoroughly enjoying the comedy of life and enjoying my obvious suffering. And most probably it was because my professor knew that she was never going to tell on me. Thank you, God. If you are out there, if you know this professor, thank you. Thank you for not ratting me out. You were one of the many gifts that I have had that has led me to this place right here, right now. If it wasn't for you, I never would have had to do those journal entries for Gabriel, our yoga guru, who pointed out how many times in my journal I wrote, "I think," and had me go back and re-explore my five senses through "I feel," encouraging me to listen to a subtler, intuitive part of myself. Again, paradigm shift. If it wasn't for you, and others at this school like you, I wouldn't have gotten to do mask work on Imogen and explore what it meant to be a phoenix. We're studying Shakespeare in our movement class, using his metaphors to explore movement through animal references he makes for his characters. I mean, it was incredible. We had foxes, fish, snakes, monkeys, all of us working on monologues in this open movement room. And my character was compared to a phoenix, which is great, but I mean, it's difficult to find on YouTube. And what's interesting is in the months leading up to this classroom exercise, I was having these vivid dreams. I was writing abstruse poetry about these dreams. There was something that was shifting, something was evolving or mutating, perhaps. And whatever it was, I didn't have a conscious awareness of it. One recurring dream that I had was that I was inside of my body, aware of myself, and at the same time I was outside viewing my being objectively. And in this dream, my ribs were cracking open on the sides. And as I was taking a breath, I was lifting my arms, and through my ribs, these wings that were attached to my arms were unfolding. Anyway, when I went to study a phoenix, I was looking for some kind of characteristic that I could use in movement class, something that I could use to play with the fish and the fox and the other creatures. And what I got was little in the way of behavior. I got a lot in the way of symbology, rebirth, resurrection, regeneration, renewal. I was undergoing a mental and physical paradigm shift through which I was redefining my life's course, my entire way of seeing and interacting with the world. I was unfolding, if you will, through the guidance and expertise of the professors and students here at this school. There was a new chapter in my life that was beginning, and it's led me here. So, almost done, I swear to God. Recently, I got to play the part of Lenore Kendall. She's a Love Generation poetess. And she said the following, and she talks about poetry, and I don't think that it's exclusive to poetry, because poetry is art. Life is art. Acting, directing, writing, lighting, Paul Miller, is art. She said, poetry is alive because it is a medium of vision and experience. It is not necessarily comfortable. It is not necessarily safe. When a poet censors his vision, he no longer tells the truth as he sees it. This results in an artificial limitation imposed on an art whose direction is beyond the limits of the conceivable. There are no barriers to poetry or prophecy. By their nature, they are barrier breakers, bursts of perception, lines into infinity. I thank all of the faculty and students here that were part of guiding my path into this sandbox of truth seekers, barrier breakers, and scofflaws. And I look forward to playing with each one of you. You guys have given me a huge gift in life by having a hand in the continuing evolution of my being. Thank you.